Imagine investing your hard-earned money into a game only to watch it crumble before your very eyes. That's the risk you take into the promised land of Steam's early access. Today we're diving into 5 cautionary tales about Steam's early access that's gonna make you think twice before hitting that add to cart button next time. Steam's early access program, a double-edged sword in the gaming world. Launched in 2013, it's the land of opportunity for indie developers to make their games happen while having the support of a passionate community of gamers. But it's also a minefield of potential disappointment and shattered expectations. And what happens when the promise is broken? When the game you believed in becomes nothing more than a distant memory and a hole in your wallet. That's what we're exploring today. 5 games that never left Steam's early access. Let's kick things off with a game that defined false advertising. The War Z was a game launched in 2012 and promised a zombie world beyond your expectations. But the survival experience was actually surviving the buggy mess that this game was. And I'll be calling the game The War Z instead of the rebranded version Infestation Survivor Stories because I just don't have the time. Now, some of the promises of the game were a huge map, 100 square kilometers that everyone can explore. But on launch day, people barely got 10. Another 100 that they lied to was 100 players on the server. No server ever got anything close to that. They also mentioned having like this comprehensive skill system that is gonna build up, never showed up. And maybe you just wanted to play the game with your friends on a private server. That feature was advertised but never made into the game. But despite the glaring issues, marketing worked because 2.8 million copies of the game were sold until its eventual demise in 2016, being an example of the dangers of the power of hype and buying into unfinished products. And if you're still pre-ordering games in 2024, consider The War Z your wake-up call. But we're not done yet. The most infamous thing about The War Z was the pay-to-play system. Initially in the game, if you died, you get like a 1-hour timer. As the game evolved, servers got fuller, they have to pay for that, so once you died, you get like a 4-hour cooldown. But you can skip the 4-hour by paying actual money into it. Now that is a great way to show how to squeeze your players on the maximum level. Let's just hope that EA never learns anything from this. But if The War Z was a cautionary tale, the Stomping Land was a full-blown disappearing act. This dinosaur survival game raised over $100,000 on Kickstarter, and it promised an immersive, prehistoric world where the players could hunt, tame, and ride the dinosaurs. The reality? A game that vanished faster than the dinosaurs themselves. Here's a timeline of the disappointment of the Stomping Land. May 2014, the game gets launched on Steam. September 2014, the game gets pulled from Steam, then pulled back again. December 2014, promise of some major updates, and then nothing. The game's lead developer, Alex Fandora, just went radio silent, leaving Kickstarter backers and early access players in the complete dark. Some of those Kickstarter backers were actually promised physical rewards, but never got. Which begs the question, do you think there should be more accountability for developers that just abandon their early access projects? Let me know in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying it so far. Now, our third game of the list, things get a little bit complicated. This video is about games that never left Steam Early Access, and Project Zomboid never left Steam Early Access. This isometric zombie survival game has been in early access since 2013. It's a game that many, including myself, adore and we put countless hours into. But it's also a perfect example of the early access dilemma. On one hand, you have regular updates and improvements, a dedicated development team, and a strong, engaged community who does love the game. But on the other hand, you have a game that's been a decade on early access, some of the promised features still haven't been implemented, and there is no clear timeline on its full release. Project Zomboid raises an important question. If the game never reaches its final form, does it even matter if we put countless hours and we had fun with it? So what do you think? How long is too long for a game to be on early access? And does it really matter if the game reaches a final form or not? Are you okay with potentially never seeing a final form on a game that you enjoyed playing? Because when it comes to overpromising and under-delivering, few names in the industry carry as much weight as Peter Molyneux. Known for his huge promises on the Fable series and Black and White, his most infamous one might be Godus. This god game simulator promised to change the whole genre. When it launched on Kickstarter, it had stretch goals that seemed too good to be true. Spoiler alert, they were. Godus promised a deep, choice-driven gameplay experience, multiplayer features, regular updates and expansions, the God of Gods prize, where one player would enjoy 1% of the game's revenue. But instead, players got mindless clicking and grinding, a linear progression, an abandoned development, and a God of Gods who never saw a penny. Peter Molyneux's reputation for grand promises eventually caught up with him, leading to a massive disappointment, and eventually the game got removed from Steam. The worst of it is that he actually blamed Kickstarter for the absurd promises, mentioning that if he never made them, he would never have secured the funding. As for why the God of Gods never made their 1%, according to Molyneux, the game never made money anyway. It's a convenient explanation, one that does leave a sour taste. Our final game on today's list is Last Oasis, a game that promised to be no longer than 24 months on Steam's early access. If you've been paying attention, you can probably figure out how this one turns out. This game has some of the most heartbreaking game reviews I've ever seen on Steam. For a game that once had an all-time peak of 33,000 players playing to now barely holding 100, the fall from grace is just palpable. Key issues on this game was solo players felt overwhelmed by big clans, and those large clans dominated the games, eventually pushing out casual players. And even though players were telling this, developers didn't seem to care. In a rare moment of candor, one of the software developers even admitted that the game sucked. However, despite attempts to rework and salvage a project, Last Oasis never managed to recapture its original promise. While you can technically still buy and play the game, it stands as a reminder that even the most promising early access games can fall victim to poor management and poor decision making. As we've seen today, the world of Steam early access is a strange place. From outright scams to well-intentioned projects that just lose their way, it's a system that demands caution from you, the consumers. But there are success stories of games that use Steam's early access and turn out to be amazing. And that's what we're going to be talking about next week, when we're going to be exploring those video games and closing this video series telling why, despite its flaws, Steam's early access is so important on the gaming industry. Share your thoughts in the comments and like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you disliked it, and subscribe if you want more content like this. All right, bye!